What's going on, everybody? Wilson here, your spiritual hype man. And I hope you're having a great day. And if you're not, that's okay too. But just remember, you can change that by just shutting those thoughts off. Just stop thinking about what you're thinking about. I know it's easier said than done, but there's definitely ways to go about it. Maybe some prompts, some questions that can get you thinking about something else, like, who is the best person in the world? Of course it's you, right? I feel like you're the superhero of your story. And everybody listening, like your own individual self, you are your own superhero, right? And I think that's something that I've most recently been talking to a few people, and everyone goes through the same shit, right? Like everyone goes through the same shit. So whatever feelings, and we've talked about this before, at the basic denomination of who we are, obviously other than cells and all that shit, is really just feeling, right? Like, how do I feel about my situation? How am I feeling right now? And I would say most of us feel like superheroes because we are. I feel like we're our own superhero to our own comic book or chapters or life or video or movie, right? So I've talked to a few homies that they're going through some situations, whether it's family situations or, external situations with someone else. And I think the common denominator is that, you do have situations in your life that you have, like, the whole thought is like, if it's not you, then who, right? Like, if it's not you going through it, then who's it going to be? If it's not you, the person that's, putting in the effort, putting in, the extra effort or doing something that is tough or doing something that wasn't expected or wasn't part of your schedule or something along those lines. Like, if not you, then who, right? And especially in this situation, if there's other people involved. And so I feel like all of us are our own story and superhero. And superheroes carry the weight on their own fucking shoulder, right? So they carry the weight of the world, they carry the weight of their city, et cetera, et cetera. And I think for most of us, there's been plenty of times that I would assume most of us feel that way. And I think the best way of fixing or just moving forward, right? Or like having that next situation of not feeling that way, I think comes from being able to, if you can do it yourself, fine. And sometimes it's good to be by yourself. Again, being alone on Thanksgiving, that's an episode. If you haven't listened to that, definitely listen to it because I got a couple of aha moments in there. But I would assume that it's certain times of taking time to yourself and then also being able to have somebody you can share it with, somebody that gives you an outside perspective, right? And so one of my buddies he ended up calling me, and ultimately his sister, unfortunately, was going through like stage 4 cancer, and he had to move back from where he was working, where he was living, back to where his sister was living, to be able to take care of her and take her to different forms of medical, et cetera. And of course it's going to be a lot because one, he lost his parents in that manner, and two, now it's his sister. And he moved all of his stuff back from one place to another, like basically is now living with them, downstairs. And so there's this situation that was unforeseen, and now he's part of it. But I did give the time to think about this, and obviously I'm not in that situation, but I can only imagine, how the individual is feeling, how the person is feeling. And again, perspective, right? Like being able to understand other people's perspective, I think is one of the things that will save humanity. And then just listening to him, and I think the thought is like, if we were 10 years ahead in the future and we looked back at this situation, what do you want out of it? Do you want to, have like the thought of like, I wish I would have, right? Or I can't believe we didn't do this, right? Like, so maybe taking that step out and prospectively looking 10 years into the future and then looking back and asking yourself, what do I want out of the situation? What do I want to remember? Is it regret? I'm regretful that I didn't. I'm regretful that this happened. Or by having that ability, or at least that thought or that level of consciousness to like see that 10 years in the future? Or do you want to live, your best fucking life? So in this example, I asked him, I was like, yo, think about that. Like, think about 10 years out. Do you want to look back at this moment right now and like be regretful in the fact that like, a lot of the time spent and the memory spent was on all of these things I got to do. We got to go to the doctors. It's stage 4. Like all these things that we're like focusing on that is not helping us feel great, right? In those types of situations. Or is it possible to look back and be like, you know what, we fucking did it. Like no matter what time left, we went out with a bang, like it was fucking amazing. We lived like it was our last day. And both, myself and the sister, like I'm talking in terms of like that perspective, enjoyed our lives, right? For that moment of time, like that we still had together, like that we still have consciously here on earth. It's like we loved it. We enjoyed it. We ate, we sang, we cried, we jumped, we went to the beach. Like that's the stuff, right? So it was an amazing conversation, and I appreciate him for actually calling and sharing, and being able to be open. And so again, both things, the 10-year look back period of how do I want this situation to be remembered, right? Especially if you're going through something similar or something of that nature where you're feeling down, like the superhero is feeling overwhelmed or down or upset. Maybe the thought is, let me look back, let me go forward 10 years and look back, and what do I really want to remember from this situation? Remember about myself, my character, the other people. How did I affect them in this manner? And so that's a great way of looking at it. And then the second point, just to reinforce, is like superheroes need their homies. They need their spiritual hype man, right? They need the person that they can rely on and they can talk freely without any recourse or any thought of judgment. And I think that's important for the superhero, for individuals, for us, for people that, for just people, period, for people, period. And I think that's a huge thing to remember. So if you don't have someone, or you ever find yourself like you can't talk to someone, feel free to reach out, feel free to reach out to me, because I would love to hear you out or hear what your perspective is, and provide some perspective to you. And or anybody else that you think would be conscious enough to give you great perspective. The goal would be for you to leave feeling amazing after you talk to the person, and not feeling even worse, right? So you just, and again, I don't want to say like be careful around those people, it's because I don't like saying that. I think it's just be aware of how do you feel after you are done engaging with someone, and then is that the right person for you to open up to and have that type of conversation. But again, any superhero, they need it, right? Or anybody in this society of existence, I think we need that perspective. Always perspective. What is that other person feeling? What is the perspective maybe 10 years in the future, and then looking back, and then somebody to be able to talk to openly and freely. All right, homies, think about that. Maybe you can be that person for someone too, right? So remember, it works on both ways, and trying to figure out how you can best affect people in the most positive way. That's it for this one. A little shorter, but I appreciate you. We're sending vibes to the homie and his sister and everyone else going through something like that. Keep your superhero costume on tight. Let's go. Keep crushing it. Do your damn thing. And we'll talk to you again soon on the next one. Thanks, guys, for listening. Peace. And don't forget, nothing changes until you do.